The conference room smelled like lemon oil and old paper, the kind of scent that clung to wood and secrets. My mother adjusted her pearl necklace with a perfectly manicured hand. My father sat stiffly, arms crossed like he was bracing for battle, and Kalia, ever the curated darling, wore a cream blouse too pristine for grief and a half-smile like she'd already won. Mr. Halpern, Grandpa's lawyer for over 3 decades, cleared his throat and opened the folder with slow, deliberate movements. "We are gathered to honor the final wishes of Merrick Wynn." His voice didn't waver, not even as he looked directly at me before reading the allocations aloud. To Kalia Wynn he began the Jackson Hole cabin and the vintage 1959 Gibson guitar. Kalia blinked clearly, expecting more. To Everett and Lizette Wynn, his voice continued the heirloom grandfather clocks, select vinyl records, and a $10,000 charitable gift made in their name. My mother made a noise between a scoff and a gag. "That can't be right." Mr. Halpern didn't flinch. He turned the next page. "To Serafina Wynn, my granddaughter, my confidant. He leaves his entire financial estate totaling $38,246,000. Silence. Then what my father barked. Kalia's jaw twitched. My mother stood up, face flushed. "She abandoned us. She doesn't deserve," Mr. Halpern continued without lifting his eyes. "This will was signed, notarized, and filed by Merrick Wynn personally 3 months prior to his death. They didn't hear the rest." My father lunged across the table, snatched the check Mr. Halpern had just handed me, and held it up like it was counterfeit. "You think this buys you back in?" Before I could respond, he lit a match. The check curled and blackened as the fire danced along the edge. My mother ripped the envelope I'd held, tearing it until Grandpa's handwriting dissolved into shreds. "This is what happens when you betray your family," she hissed. I didn't move, I didn't beg, I just smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes but keeps you steady. Because what they burned wasn't what they thought, and what they never saw was the envelope still tucked inside my coat. The last real conversation I had with my father ended with him saying, "If you walk out that door, you don't walk back in." I was 19. I had just turned down a full ride to his alma mater's business program and enrolled instead in a small liberal arts college upstate to study visual design. He called it a hobby with delusions. My mother didn't argue. She just stood behind him with her lips pressed so tight they nearly disappeared. 3 weeks later, I came home for Thanksgiving and found my bedroom stripped bare. The desk, the bed, even the bookshelf with the notes Grandpa used to leave between the pages gone. In their place were 2 gray armchairs, a faux orchid, and a framed print of a lighthouse I'd never seen before. The doorplate had been changed from Serafina to Guest Room A. Kalia passed me in the hallway and laughed. "Don't be so dramatic, it's not like you were using it." They didn't cut me off all at once. At it was small things, missed birthday cards, unanswered calls. Then the rent check from my parents didn't show up. When I called to ask, my mother sighed and said, "Actions have consequences, Sarah. You wanted independence, now you have it." I would have lost the apartment if Grandpa hadn't stepped in. He wired the exact amount 2 days later, no questions asked. After that, the money came in a quiet rhythm. Not too much, never flashy. Just enough to keep the lights on and the heat running. With it came letters in his shaky, elegant script. He never criticized me for leaving. He never asked me to come back. But in every line there was something stronger than either he saw me. The last one I ever received arrived 3 weeks before he passed. It said, "Only survival isn't weakness. It's the proof of strength." I tucked that letter into my wallet and carried it through every job rejection, every silent holiday, every evening spent pretending I didn't care. I carried it still even as the ashes of the fake check cooled on the table in front of me, and my hand slipped into my coat to touch the real envelope waiting there. The thing I did when I got home was lock the door behind me and slip off my heels. My legs were trembling, but not from fear, more like exhaustion held in place too long. I laid my coat on the kitchen chair and pulled out the envelope Grandpa had given me a month before he died. He'd handed it over in a quiet booth at Hillstone Diner wrapped in a cloth napkin like he was giving me a relic. "Don't open it," he said, "unless they burn it." And they had. I broke the wax seal and unfolded the contents slowly. A single check almost identical to the one that had turned to ash in front of me just hours earlier. The same number, same signature. But this one was marked in tiny red letters, non-negotiable copy. My fingers didn't tremble. I turned the check over and found a small USB drive taped to the back, along with a handwritten note in Grandpa's blocky script. "Let them burn it, then open the real file." I plugged it in. There was no loading screen, no password prompt, just a single folder labeled Inheritance, and inside it, a PDF copy of a trust transfer form. It was signed, witnessed, and filed through a firm I didn't recognize. The account number ended in digits I'd memorized as a child, his birthday backwards. The funds were real. The transfer had already happened. Weeks ago, the check they torched wasn't just a decoy. It was bait. I leaned back in my chair, the silence in my apartment thick as velvet. This wasn't about them anymore. It hadn't been for a while. Grandpa hadn't just trusted me, he'd planned for their reactions step by step. And now, so would I. The next morning, I tried to check my bank balance, part habit, part reassurance. The screen blinked once, then again before an error message appeared. Account not found. I tried another card. Declined. I refreshed the login screen and typed everything slower as if being precise could fix the glitch. Still nothing. I told myself it was a security lock, maybe a fraud flag from yesterday's event. But when I called the bank, the man on the other end of the line sounded hesitant. "I'm sorry, Miss Wynn," he said, tapping at keys I couldn't see. "Our system has your account marked inactive. Deceased, actually." My mouth went dry. "That's a mistake." He paused. "It was certified by the registrar's office. Dated February ago." I hung up before my voice could crack. The DMV confirmed it an hour later. The woman behind the glass screen blinked at her monitor, frowned, and said, "You're flagged as legally deceased. Death certificate filed under your full name, Serafina Lisette Wynn." Her tone was flat, but her eyes flicked up to me with pity. "You'll need to file a correction. That process can take months." I didn't answer. I walked out into the cold, dazed as if someone had peeled the edges of the world back and revealed that everything I thought was solid could vanish. Across the street, a woman stood still, half-shadowed beneath a row of bare-limbed trees. Her sunglasses were too large for the gray sky. She wore a pale blue silk scarf, looped once around her neck, the same scarf my mother claimed the dry cleaners had lost 3 years ago. She didn't smile, she didn't look away, she was watching. I stepped back into the flow of foot traffic and moved without thinking, not fast, but deliberate. When I turned the corner, she was gone. Back in my apartment, I pulled open the drawer where I kept old letters and laid them out like breadcrumbs. I wasn't just disinherited. I was being erased carefully, quietly, and thoroughly. And someone was watching to make sure it stuck. I opened my laptop, pulled the USB from its case, and stared at the folder Grandpa had labeled Inheritance. Somewhere inside was the next step. The brass key had been sitting in my nightstand for years, wrapped in the same worn handkerchief Grandpa gave it to me in on my 18th birthday. I never asked what it opened. He just said, "You'll need this someday when you're ready to claim yourself." That day had come. Langford Private Vault sat behind an unmarked door, near the edge of the historic district, tucked between a boutique wine shop and a faded bookstore. The woman at the front desk took one look at the key, checked her records, and led me down a quiet corridor without asking any questions. The air grew colder the farther we walked until we reached a narrow room lined with metal drawers. "Box 17, she said, unlocking the drawer and sliding it forward.